What's up, witches? When everything falls apart, your plans, your energy, and your sense of direction, most people panic or push. Today, we're going to be talking all about what to do instead so you can stay grounded, clear, and in your power when life starts to unravel.
Welcome to Peace Out Witches, where divine feminine magic meets your sacred business mastermind. We're your hosts, Jamie and Stacy, here to help you ditch the pressure, reclaim your peace, and step into your natural flow.
Let's name this honestly. When everything falls apart and it feels terrifying, the nervous system goes into alarm. The mind scrambles for control. Old coping patterns, overworking, numbing, self blame come rushing back. Often we'll move into survival mode. And this is where we begin kind of trying to fill our space. We'll even have time maybe away where we're by ourselves and we'll try to fill that time, or we won't be sure what to do with that time. That's usually when we know that things are, a part of our nervous system that are no longer working for us and we need to work through. It's really important at those moments to be able to really like be honest. If we're not honest with what's going on, then it's much harder to be able to actually deal with or talk about why your body is going into a nervous system that is on constant alarm.
Right. And just to recognize that these moments in life are never failures. And especially in business, I think we translate it to our business isn't working. The whole thing isn't working. And our emotional state becomes the of our business, whereas the clear-headed, who can look at the oversee everything and see it practically, needs to come into play so that we don't see it as a failure. Because when our emotions take over, it looks like a failure. But when we look at everything as a whole, and we look at all the pieces that we're dealing with, then we're able to break down exactly what lessons we've learned from those things. And then also, maybe we need to pivot, maybe we need to regroup, maybe everything fell apart in our ego mind so that we can level up to what we've been dreaming all along. So we like to say it's not a breakdown, but it's a doorway, or it's a threshold to something new.
So in these moments, it's really important to not abandon yourself. And so, one of the very first practices that we often work with when we are in what we call the fight, flight, or freeze response, fawn response, or amygdala hijack, these are all the same thing, okay? Being triggered, all of them are the same response within the body. And so then the body begins to not understand the difference between safety and not safety. So one of the easiest and most accessible practices is really just taking your hands and putting them on your heart and breathing up and down, in and out, in a way that really is just giving you breath because we often don't breathe beyond our chest. And then reminding yourself that you're safe, I'm enough, I don't need to rush or panic, and then if needed, you can also remind yourself, this isn't my shit, because sometimes the things that fall away really aren't about us. So there is that aspect of just reminding yourself that you need to be witness to. And by putting your hands on your heart and breathing, you are allowing yourself to witness yourself. By slowly breathing, you're allowing yourself to arrive back in the body, let it know that it's safe. And you are really just beginning to collapse some of the things that are making you feel like you're out of control so that you can take back control and begin to recreate maybe a new and better thing.
That's right. And it's, important to recognize when you're feeling raw or defeated, or you have these strong emotions, that this is not where we solve our problems. We're in this state of suffering. And so we're really experiencing the fallout, so to speak, or the emotional reaction or bodily reaction to whatever stimuli we're perceiving. And so we're not in fixing mode right now. Okay. So if you're in this situation yourself and you had a roadblock in your business that's left you kind of feeling uneasy on any level, we're not rushing to fix this. We are not looking for our clarity right now. We're not looking to make these raw emotions go away. We are,
Or to make it better,
yeah, we're
like that might
tending
not be the
toward,
time to go back
yeah,
and fix the thing that fell
right.
apart.
No, you want to go inward and support your body and support your situation in a way that is very simple. I mean, these are practices that we overlook in life because they just seem like they don't work, or I've tried breath work, it doesn't work for me, or, I have to do, go, go, go. I don't have time to sit and actually like tend to myself and my body and the way I'm feeling. In order to really grow in your spiritual sacred business, you really do have to do that work too. It's the balance of the two. We're not here to teach you how to run a business in corporate America, or if you're in, whatever country you're in. We're here to show you that the path to a sacred business is by integrating all the tools that maybe you teach already.
Well, it's
So
also by
breath work.
living a sacred life, like you
Yes.
can't walk the walk of healing in any way. Massage therapist, doctor, personal trainer, Reiki, energetic worker, angelic worker. Maybe you're even doing like yoga, or maybe you're running breathwork classes. Maybe you're doing what we do in our academy and you're teaching women, all different kinds of modalities to healing. You show up every day to your light and dark. And I think that sometimes when our world is collapsing, we will, climb onto the light a lot, and we'll climb onto those things that feel good, and we'll want to busy ourselves because it is easier than just like allowing ourselves to fall apart. But I think that we have to remember that when things are collapsing and when they're falling apart, it's often the old structures that, are no longer in our new dream or on our new timeline or in our new path. And, sometimes it can be really hard for our ego to hold on to old identities or old things that it created or old dreams that it had. It can also be hard if we have a really good rhythm in place and that rhythm starts not working. It can feel like that shame and guilt cycle attached to it.
Mhm.
So remembering that it's not punishment, it's information. So
Mhm.
you're safe. And then
Mhm.
processing, what has this taught us? What does it allow us to be able to see in our current business that's working? And
Mhm.
where does it allow us to see where we have changed, where our identity has become new and we maybe haven't stepped into it yet? Or maybe we have stepped into it yet, and that's part of the falling away.
Absolutely. And it's about really reflecting. When we have moments in time that feel out of our control, then it's time to reflect. It's time to take a moment and pause and ask questions, that will help us to discover what the lessons are in the moment that we're dealing with. So, a couple of questions you can ask yourself: what is no longer sustainable? Um, what am I asked to stop carrying? What have I been carrying in that isn't working? It's become more of a frustration than a feeling of excitement. Where am I pushing past my own limits? Because sometimes when we push past our limits, that growth opportunity happens and it feels uncomfortable, but it's keep going. That's when you push. That's when you push because you know that you're testing who you are and you really are ready for your breakthrough in your business. And but there is that piece that when business is the real world reality 3D matrix kind of situation. So you are needing to fine tune those pieces and really reflect on those 3D things, and that reflection doesn't necessarily have to be what people are telling you you're doing wrong. It can just be going inward and reflecting on how is this working? How is it not for me? And what is it that in a in my situation right now, what information am I being given? And then how can I look at this as a way to expand? Always ask, where can I expand here? Where can I expand here? Where can I expand here? Instead of, I'm a victim of this. It's more of a, okay, this is pushing me to expand. Where can I expand?
Well, I think that oftentimes, in business, in the things that we create, when things are falling apart, we really have a reality that we haven't talked about yet. And that reality is that aspect of, are you willing to rise up to the new thing that you have to be to continue moving forward? And sometimes that means that the way that you've done things has to fall apart. Sometimes
Mhm.
that means the things that you created have to fall apart, especially, in business where you're making products or, I mean, that would be extra hard, right? Because you're seasonally and you're having to always create things.
Mhm.
Whereas in sacred businesses, you're dealing often with energetic things that are going to go on with the year. For example, in this year, we're currently in the year of the snake and we're in the year of nine, which is an ending. So, an ending to many things can feel like a collapse. It can feel like, not like an expansion, right? But in that aspect, you do have
Mhm.
two choices. And sometimes the choice is that this isn't the right thing for you to be doing and you have to move
Mhm.
on. And
Mhm.
sometimes the choice is that you have to be able to shed the old skin and step into the new one and create new to be able to continue growing in that area. And that
Mhm.
is partly just because we grow, we grow as people. We're not who we were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or even yesterday. So what are some things that we can do that help stabilize us when we feel like our world's falling apart or when we feel like things aren't going our way? Or when we feel like even maybe we are in the void of creation and we maybe can't see beyond any of those things yet.
I have a few things that I always fall back on. If you're already in the season of creating your business and maybe you're actively in business, going back to your mission statement. And if you haven't written a mission statement for your life purpose, do it because your mission statement is what you value. And you'll find probably the things that are coming up for you in the growth that you're having, like to say that these challenges are growth opportunities, is that they may not align with your mission statement, or maybe they do align with your mission statement and it's just becoming more refined for you. So, really going back to the basics, going back to simplicity, understanding where you're at. So, for instance, if you're shifting your say you're in the midst of shifting your business and you've already have a clientele that you have in your circle or in your system and they expect one thing but you're shifting to something else, they're going to feel the shift and some of them are going to feel it and it could be an issue. Understanding that the shift is for your growth and for your business trajectory and your growth of your business, and that you're needing to go on this route to pivot to this new thing or pivot to in a way that is more sustainable for your ability to achieve your mission statement, so to speak. Allowing allowing is a very simple way to just deal with the things that are happening around your life. How can you be a third person observer to the things that you're experiencing? How can you allow yourself to have the emotions, allow yourself to be raw, allow yourself to be frustrated, but then also observe it. Observe why are you frustrated? Why are we frustrated? What's underneath that? This is a practice that Stacy shares. What's underneath that? What's underneath that? And going inward, less explaining, less doing more, and more rest and reflection is really needed at this time. And if you're in a breakthrough moment and you know it, then push through. That's when the push comes. But if you're in a holding pattern and you're like, okay, what is going on here? There's a lot of things happening. Remember the energetics of this year. If you're in the year of the snake listening to this, we're shedding of skin, endings, new beginnings too, because when one cycle ends, a new beginning happens. You're not only experiencing it, the people you're dealing with are experiencing it too.
Hmm.
And so they're having their shedding of skin and they're leveling up and becoming who they need to be. And so that goes with a collective consciousness as well. So you're dealing with the individuals, now you're going collectively. Collectively, things are shifting. So what worked in your business maybe last year doesn't work in the collective now because they are going through this cycle of shift in the endings of the 9 year and having their, and so you want to really look at all the levels of it so you can understand what works, what's not working, and shifting and pivoting is important when you're ready, not necessarily in the emotion rawness of it. This is just a reflection period.
I think it's also important to do practical things, like have touch points in your life that you can touch and communicate with that are going to bring you back to grounding, whether that be lighting a candle, whether that be journaling, whether that be meditating. I love to start with gratitude as well. When you're dealing with business and life and things feel like they're falling apart, it's good to look at the things that aren't falling apart so that you can help your amygdala understand that you are not in danger. And, it can even be simple things like if we also have to talk about like the hierarchy of needs. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking about your business having things that are falling apart, but you're still stable in life, then you know that you have time to be able to like work through parts of your business. But if things are falling apart like in your entire life, maybe you're losing housing, food, things like this, then it really is important to kind of go back to that touch point of grounding and making sure that you are always giving yourself the opportunity to be grounded and to listen and to remind yourself that you are safe. You can walk, you can open your eyes, you can breathe, you can touch things, you can taste things, like, and then being able to look at how you can fill that hierarchy. So, if you first are dealing with like housing issues, things like that, obviously that hierarchy has to be dealt with. So there's that period of survival that comes in. But once you kind of are passed through some of those hierarchies, even in your business, because there's parts of your business that need money in order to continue working,
Mhm.
then you have the ability to really, take a step back, reflect, and look at the bigger picture. But in that aspect of survival, it's important to protect your energy. It's important to give yourself rest and to begin to figure out what you need on a daily basis so that you can feel whole in your body. And so what I mean by that is that actually feel safe in the body. You're not feeling like you're in survival, fight, flight, or freeze, fawning every day, all day long. You're actually able to have moments where you are feeling whole and centered. And like for me, that might even be having a blanket wrapped completely around me and laying on my bed and nobody touching me for a minute or two, but it just reminds my somatic system that I'm safe. And then I can go deal with the thing that I'm dealing with. But you don't want to deal with it when you're in that survival, fight, flight, and freeze pace. That's when you really want to just try to bring yourself back to stability, back to protection, back to safety.
And it's really about being present in the moment and learning to not live in the future and not live in the past as much as you can and like just be present. And that's what self-care is. Anything you do in our business, we teach women how to run sacred businesses, but we teach them how to nurture themselves so that they can help others.
Hmm.
Because you cannot help others from an empty cup. You have to fill your cup and you have to make sure you are in alignment and feeling authentic and feeling well enough to do that. And so self care is really important. It's a huge part of how we have, if you've never done it, how do you take care of yourself when you're in a situation that feels out of your control? What is your first instinct? Really looking at how you deal with the feeling of out of controlness and
Hmm.
then writing it down and then looking at that and saying, is this a healthy way? Is this healthy for me? Yes. Is this healthy for me? Oh, absolutely not healthy. And really breaking that down and then adding in things that you can do that are healthy, self nurturing, giving you something that is actually going to fill your cup as opposed to depleting your cup, and then doing those practices and seeing how you feel, because we cannot be 100% all the time in our business life and everything. We have to, and we're human, we're bodies, we're women, we're men. I mean, who, if you're a man listening to this, we have to flow. And in order to flow, we have to stop and take a breath before we can jump back into the flow. If the flow is beating us up and we're going down that river and we feel like we're drowning, time to go to shore and take a minute and rest, light the fire,
Hmm.
warm up.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a great time to be able to look at those things. Like, are the rhythms in your business working for you? Are things falling apart in your business because you're holding too many things, Like, or are they falling apart because you've made changes? If you've made a
Mhm.
lot of changes and you're
Mhm.
trying to be something different in your business, it is very normal for things to fall apart and things to come anew because you've said yes to that new thing. and you said
Mhm.
yes to those old things falling away. It really is a rebirth, an initiation, and a sacred, union into you made a sacred yes. And a lot of times our soul and spirit will hit that timeline before our body hits that timeline. And so
Mhm.
it's really about providing the regulation as often as we can for our body while we are going through the process of, jumping on that other timeline that we're dreaming up or have been dreaming up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super important to know where you're at. Where are you in your business? Where have you come from? Where are you going? And where are you at? That's that present moment. Taking time to reflect on where you are actually at and what's working, what's not working, not finding solutions. We're not in solution mode. It's about discovery,
Hmm.
discovering what works, making sure we have gratitude and leave room for gratitude for the things that worked. That alone can help you get out of fight or flight
Yeah.
if you spend a good time doing that.
Well, and it's important, it's important to look at the things that are working and the things that aren't, and not bypassing that. And I think a lot of times we want to bypass the icky stuff. We want to
Mhm.
bypass the shadowy stuff. We want to bypass the way that we feel. We want to bypass the truth. We want to bypass the fight. We want to bypass, you know, anything to feel comfortable
Mhm.
and to feel good and to feel
Mhm.
joy. And I think sometimes we have to remember that in order to get comfortable with things like joy, we need to feel anger. Getting comfortable with anger means that we feel joy. It means when we're comfortable with peace, we know peace because we were uncomfortable with agitation. We, have this ability in our lives to have a mindset of understanding that things come at us so that we can learn and grow. And it really isn't our world falling apart or everything collapsing. It's just one thing falling away so that we can create a stronger branch and a stronger part of our tree as we continue to grow. That brings me to how we recreate and rebuild when we feel like things have fallen apart. So obviously there's that part of sitting, being quiet, reflection, that aspect of not bypassing the way that you feel, the way that you felt, or the way that this thing makes you feel. Also, not bypassing the shadowy parts of what wasn't working and the light parts of what were working. And gratitude is that light piece. The shadow would be like the reality, right? Like maybe the only thing I'm grateful for today is that I can walk and I breathe. And maybe the reality is that I need to access shelter and food. Or
Mhm.
maybe in my business, I'm at a starting point again. Maybe,
Mhm.
3 years ago I built something and then all the things fell away from that. And now I have to rebuild something and I'm at a starting point again. So it's that ability to be able to understand that we have a lot of start, stop, continues in our life. And so, what am I starting? What am I continuing? And what am I
Mhm.
stopping? And maybe
Mhm.
some of the stop is things you didn't have control over, and maybe some of the stop is things you have control over. But being clear on that allows you to emerge in a way that gives you clarity and lets you rebuild. So then you can create from a space of what you're calling in and what you're wanting. And you can also create from a space of, what do I want my rhythm to look like? Do I want in my business to be able to work 24/7 all day, every day, and never be gone in my business? Is that working for me? Or maybe I want to be able to work in my business where I can have other people who are able to do things. And so, what are those systems that I put in place for that to be able to happen? Or maybe I want to work in a business that is collaborative. Or maybe I don't work in a business collaborative. Maybe I own my business completely by myself. And I just need to make sure that I'm protecting my own energy. So, I think that it's important to be able to look at the ground and from the ground up and be able to determine on a yearly basis what you're taking with you and what you're not. And I think oftentimes we don't want to do that because we don't want to look at the reality of like, you know, what would be the
Mhm.
ground? What would be the ground level? Because I'm way up here. I don't want to like look at that. But
Right.
by assessing that way up here, we get to continue to make that growth and continue to heighten what it is we're creating.
And I think the key here is to allow yourself that dark night of the soul. if so to speak,
Mm.
because we want to be able to, as humans, have the emotional range and intelligence to reach the highs that can be sustainable, but also go dip down into the lows, which are inevitable, and not stay in any one spot, because our flow and intention isn't just one level. It is through all of the range of emotions that we have, that we receive guidance. And if we're constantly on this high, or seeking a high, or seeking it to be, that everything is perfect all the time, then we forget. Then when something does knock us off our pedestal, or when, we talk about, Stacy and I often talk about, like, having a glass tower and someone throws a stone at it and it crumbles. Um, then picking up the pieces and rebuilding is easier, because you've had fully lived each season of whatever it is you're going through, instead of tucking it away for later because you don't want to deal with it. And your business will suffer in ways if you don't deal with these pieces, because if you just ignore them and sweep them under the rug, then you're going to have the same cycle come up and up and up and up. It's just going to continue. But if you clean out from under the rug, sweep it up, throw it in the trash, take what you need. Maybe there's some, an earring or two in there that you landed on the floor and you need to pick those up. That's fine, but the rest can go. Then you've given yourself time for that reflection and understanding that that's life, ladies.
Yeah.
Life, and that's business.
Well, it's
Business
grit.
is,
It's that grit.
yes.
It's
Yeah.
that grit. And the grit is what teaches us that we can put our hands on our heart and say, I'm safe, even
Mm.
though I feel like my world's falling apart. I know my
Mhm.
body's safe. I know that I'm
Mhm.
okay here. I know that this is part of the process of me clearing out and creating new.
Yes.
So what comes after? How do we begin to
The integration.
recreate and integrate through some of these more difficult times?
I would like to, say that Peace More Perfection Academy has a program called 16 Divine Nights. It's something that we do during the holy nights of December. And we're in that month that we're going to embark on that journey. And that journey really is teaching you how to reflect, how to gain guidance, and how to connect internally and with spirit to guide us through our personal lives, our business lives. The program is designed for all of that. And I think it could be used at any time, especially if you're in business and you're having like a dark night of your soul, finding a way to, in your life, to systematically and rhythmically move through these pieces that works for you. So most of us are not taught how to deal with crisis. Most of us are not taught how what we've been shown on TV, film, parents, society, is to give up and roll on, or to not deal with it and find a way to escape it, right? So having a system in place that works to get you through this piece and allows you to explore it in a way that allows you to integrate it and take the lessons from it, and then build who you are, build your character, build the person you're becoming, and holding that space for that becoming. And it also sheds away things that are inauthentic to you as well. Make sure your system that you use, or whatever practices you come up with, or if you use 16 Divine Nights, that it's giving you more authenticity, because the resistance of life is truly mostly because we're not being authentic. We're
Mhm.
not authentically honoring who we are and our needs. We're not authentic. We're giving away our power. Anytime you give away your power, you are losing parts of yourself. So we could go on and on about that topic, but just having a system in place to integrate, and having self-care as part of your practice, so that you can calm your nervous system, calm your rawness, allow the emotions to have their voice, but then move past them, so you can
Mhm.
grow and have that range of emotions, so that you can have the good and the bad, and it doesn't affect you or knock you off your foundation. You still have this steady foundation that's going to float through the light, the river of life, even if the waves come, because it's steady. So whatever that looks like for you.
I think it's also important to remember like basic things, ask for help. You're not alone. I think
Mhm.
even in our businesses, sometimes we think we're alone, but find a good guide or mentor, someone who can work with you. If you don't have a guide or mentor, I mean, in our business, Peace Not Perfection Academy, we do have one-on-one guidance and coaching available there. And we also have business programs and sacred programs that will help you receive certifications and foundations in your business and in your sacred professional priestess path. But, if you are in a place in your business where you are building your business and you're needing support, you find a guide, find a mentor, find someone who can help
Mhm.
you get to the next step because we are stronger when we stand together. Strength is important, but asking for help is just as important. And I think a lot of times, we need to remember that we're meant to do these things with each other in a village. Um, you're not alone, ask for help. And when things fall apart, it's not broken, you are just refining, releasing, letting go, and you are being given the opportunity to create new and be able to, make a difference. In your life and in life of others. I think that we want to remind you always in every season that you're in that your life's not falling apart, that you're just walking a season and these seasons change. And sometimes the season is harder and sometimes the season's easier. And just remember that you don't walk it alone. If you need support, we're always here for you. Our spaces exist to hold women gently through their thresholds, so you don't have to carry this by yourself. When everything falls apart, remember you're not broken, you're not behind, you're being reformed, and peace isn't perfection. So peace is staying within yourself, even here, even in the roughness, even in the parts that don't feel so great, because you know that the peace is coming, that allowing that part of your existence also allows the joy and the goodness. So thanks for coming today and listening to us chat all about what to do when you feel like things are falling apart here at Peace Out Witches. If you liked us, please subscribe, like, comment below. We do read those, and we would love to continue having you be a part of the Peace Not Perfection, Peace Out Witches family. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. Peace out,
Peace out.
witches.